Greetings, I am Harry again with Rejection. And for those of you who don't know, Mr. Rejection is just like a typical Texas cowboy with guns blazing. Now, what am I here for? You know, there's a maxim, a global maxim actually, that says corruption fights back. What that means is when you fight corruption, Mr. Corruption usually fights back. And that maxim is more especially strong in Africa, especially in Nigeria, where impunity rules. In other words, where rulers of Africa, rulers of Nigeria specifically, have the impunity to do whatever they do because they know they'll always get away with it. Okay? So, what am I talking about? I am talking about just about 24 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago, I talked about the fact that the move, the machination by some senators in Nigeria to remove our lady, Senator Natasha, from the Senate. Now, that yesterday, I gave you the information that the removal or the recall process was foiled by Inec. Inec is the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria. Again, Inec, the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, yesterday rejected the machination of some people. And like I said in my postulation, I say that it was likely, because I can't say for sure, but it's likely that the Senate President of Nigeria, Godswill Akpabio, must have been behind it, that machination to remove Natasha from the Senate, because they've been feuding for a long time, because Natasha accuses him of sexual harassment. And though the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges immediately responded by suspending her for 6 months. Okay? Mr. No bullshitting is Mr. Objectivity cum sincerity. So, in my objectivity, I have to say that yes, it's alleged, or I think not just an allegation, it is a fact that Natasha was a little bit portrayed some kind of indiscipline on the floor of the Senate about allocation of seats. Okay, good. The question though is that enough to remove Natasha or suspend Natasha for 6 months from the Senate? My answer is, considering all the horrible things that happen on the floor of the Senate, sometimes some people throw chairs at each other, some punch each other in the Senate, and nobody gets suspended for such bad acts of indiscipline. Now, because it's a lady, I guess, but also more so because she has been alleging that Senate President Akpabio sexually harassed her several times. For that reason, something that is not serious enough to suspend somebody, in my opinion, and in the opinion of so many people in Nigeria, they have suspended Natasha from the Senate for 6 whole months. Now, there was a machination. The next one was that there was a machination by the powers that be, that the senatorial constituents of Natasha petitioned to remove her, completely remove her from the Senate. Again, why? Just because she's suspended from the Senate? Is that enough reason? The senatorial constituents of Natasha to petition to remove her from the Senate. Is that enough reason? Of course the answer is no. No, because if anything, the district or the senatorial constituents of Natasha should be fighting Akpabio and his gang of corrupt senators, especially the chairman in charge of the Senate Ethics Committee, to suspend her for 6 months without fair hearing on her allegation against Akpabio. Sexual harassment, which is a very serious issue, is an issue that everybody complains that there should be a fair hearing. In fact, during which Akpabio should not be on seat. His deputy should take over leadership of the Senate if there's to be any fair hearing on the issue, on the matter. But no, instead, they hurriedly removed or suspended Natasha from the Senate. And we are talking about that. The next thing is that the Inec, that's the Independent National Electoral Committee, Electoral Commission, rejected that fake, because I call it fake petition. It was fake, because they were not. I mean, if you watch my vlog yesterday, or my blog yesterday it was a blog. If you watch it, you will see where I argue the fact that those people were bought. The constituents of Natasha were bought to write petition or sign the petition to remove Natasha from the Senate. The funny thing about that is that they were not told why they were signing the petition, the so-called petition. They were told to come for empowerment, financial empowerment. And that's also where I talk about the fact of weaponization of poverty by Nigerian crooks, by the crooks who rule Nigeria. They have weaponized poverty. So masses of Nigeria, because they are so hungry, you dangle a few naira. Naira is the currency of Nigeria. If you dangle a few naira in their faces, they are willing to sell their mama, because everybody is hungry. That's why I said the crooks who rule Nigeria have weaponized hunger in Nigeria. So let's get to today's issue. I'm talking about the fact that just 24 hours ago, the Inec, the independent, sorry, I keep mixing it up, the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, Inec, rejected the petition from Natasha'S constituency. They rejected it for the obvious reason that it looked fake. They didn't have phone numbers from the petitioners, so-called petitioners. There were no phone numbers, no addresses. So Inec did the right thing yesterday to reject the petition. Guess what? Remember, I started this by saying that it's a global issue, that corruption, yes, corruption fights back, which is even worse in Nigeria because of impunity. Because when corruption fights back in Nigeria, they don't care about the people. It's open that they are wrong, but they're going to fight. So my point here is, this is an update on that matter of Natasha'S petition to be removed from the constituents of Natasha. Senator Natasha supposedly petitioned to remove her from the Senate. That was yesterday. Less than 24 hours, corruption decided to fight back. So what happened? Today, I got the news that no, Inec has now reversed its position to reject the petition. Now, Inec has now started a move to remove Natasha, according to the supposed recall petition from her constituents. Okay? The question is, how possible is it that between yesterday, less than 24 hours, Inec has now suddenly reversed the position that the petition was not legal, that it was not correct, the right information was not supplied for a proper petition to remove her, for a proper recall petition. And so the question is, how come within 24 hours, less than 24 hours actually, Inec has reversed its position? How did Inec now get within 24 hours 250,000, they claim, phone numbers and addresses to go with the signatories? Is it possible? My answer is no, it's not possible. Within 24 hours, what they rejected yesterday, now all of a sudden they have reversed their position. Now they are now going ahead with the removal process or with the recall process of Senator Natasha. That's where I say corruption is fighting back. Because, again, postulation. It's likely that Akpabio, because Akpabio, the fight is still on. Natasha has filed a court case against Akpabio and against the Senate generally, both on the issue of her suspension and on the issue of her allegation that Senate President Akpabio has been sexually harassing her. That is going on. So, if I knew what Nigerians are, the Nigerian rulers with impunity, Akpabio is not going to let it go. Akpabio will fight and fight until he succeeds to suppress Senator Natasha. And that's what I think is going on. And by the way, I am not on my own on this accusation of Akpabio being a corrupt Senate President who is using his power as the Senate President to do whatever, to get away with murder in the Senate. And the sad thing about it is that, for instance, the Senate Committee Chairman on Ethics and Privileges, he knows that if he goes against Akpabio, because that position, the chairmanship of any committee, that position is something that Akpabio has the authority to give people. It's an appointment. It's not by election in the Senate. Akpabio decides who chairs any committee. So what do you think? Of course, the Senate Committee Chairman on Ethics and Privileges has to kowtow to what Akpabio wants. Otherwise, he will be removed. And you know, in the Senate, or they make a lot of money for being in charge of any committee. So they don't want that to happen. And that's why also Natasha is also fighting against the Senate Chairman Committee, Senate Committee Chairman on Ethics and Privileges, for removing for suspending her illegally, because yes, it is an illegal suspension. Why? Because the case was in court. The case is still in court, and the court had ordered that before they removed Natasha, the court ordered that everything should stay status quo, as they call it. In other words, they had no power. The Senate had no power to move on to remove or to suspend Natasha from the Senate. So that case is also going on. So what the point I'm making now, people, is that corruption is now fighting back. So Inec, within 24 hours, reversed its position that rejected the petition based on suspicion that it was that the information and the signatories were illegally collected, because there were no phone numbers and there were no addresses accompanying those constituents who supposedly signed the petition. Now, let's talk about the position of Senate President Akpabio. Is it likely? Is he really corrupt? I'm not the only person saying it. Everybody has been saying it. For instance, yesterday, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who was Vice President under President Obasanjo, declared it openly, point blank, that Senate President Akpabio is a very corrupt individual. And quoting him, he also said that not only is Akpabio very corrupt, but also that he has a history of sexual harassment of women. And why did he say that? Why did Atiku Abubakar say that? Atiku Abubakar said that because he said it was an official, I repeat, an official report that he got when Akpabio was governor and he, Atiku, was vice president of Nigeria. That he got an official report that Senate President Akpabio at that time was a very, very corrupt individual. Oh, by the way, let me also support that by saying that before Senate President Akpabio became a senator, he had already been arrested by EFCC. That's the organization in Nigeria that fights corruption. He was already accused of stealing 108 billion naira from his state when he was governor. And Nigeria being what it is, they quashed that case. Yes, see, I can say it with authority because it's a fact that he was arraigned just before he became a senator, even before they even did their whatever to get him to be a senator. He was quashed, and all of a sudden they swept that allegation under the carpet because Nigeria being what it is, there were people who were interested to make sure that Godswill Akpabio became Senate President. Why? I can tell you why. The reason is, if you ask me, or even as you weren't asking me, I still tell you, Nigeria is such a horrible place for the rulers that they always look for somebody who has a case to answer. So it's good for them to get somebody who has an allegation, who has an indictment. In other words, Akpabio, I repeat, Akpabio was already indicted for looting 108 billion naira from his people. So here is the idea, my argument. Obviously, during President Buhari's time as president, when Adams Oshiomhole was chairman of APC, the ruling party, and Adams Oshiomhole did say that if you commit a crime, if you commit any sin, all you have to do is join APC and your sins are forgiven. I'm quoting him. This is not hearsay. I'm quoting him. So, obviously, they forgave Akpabio's sins and gave him the Senate president. Here's my postulation, okay? Because what are facts, I will state as facts. What are my postulations based on some existing facts? I would say I state so too. My postulation is that Nigeria being what it is, the crooks who rule Nigeria always look for the worst people in Nigeria to put in certain positions because they know they have material to blackmail you. So everybody was wondering, how could Senator Akpabio become Senate President with the indictment hanging over his head that he stole, I said, an indictment. It's not proven yet because it hasn't gone to court, of course. But every Nigerian knows that it's likely, that it's true. I try to be legally correct all the time. It's likely, I didn't say I'm sure, but it's likely that Akpabio could be really guilty of that indictment, that allegation that he stole 108 billion naira. So, President Muhammadu Buhari and the chairman of APC, that's Adams Oshiomhole, concocted everything they did to make Akpabio the Senate President so that they will have him. Here's the reason. Let me now tell you the reason for that. They wanted somebody that they can hold by the balls. They wanted to be able to blackmail Akpabio to endorse everything that the presidency wanted. And it's still going on as we speak, that Akpabio has never, in fact, he pronounced it, that whatever President Bola Tinubu wants, he gets from the Senate. Am I making sense to you now? The reason why they made him Senate president? Because, hey, if you know Nigerian rulers, you know that Akpabio can never say no to any of the presidents who put him in power. Because if he says no, they exhume his file, his indictment, his EFCC indictment for supposedly looting 108 billion naira. So he will never say no. That's a fact. Okay? It's a postulation, let me say. It's a postulation. Postulation usually is making sense or reaching a conclusion or reaching an opinion or a view based on facts, existing facts. The facts I have include that, yes, EFCC already indicted Senator Akpabio before he even became president, and he moved to APC in order to quash that indictment. That's my postulation, and it's supported by the fact that Oshomole said it point blank. If you leave whatever party you are in and move into APC, all your sins are forgiven. So they forgave Akpabio's sins, quashed the indictment in order to hold him by the balls. Blackmail, in other words. They wanted to make sure that they say jump, he will only ask how high. And that's what has been happening. If you put this together with the fact that Inec is also a very, very controversial Inec. That's Independent National Electoral Commission. Everybody knows what happened in 2023 during the presidential election. From nowhere, all of a sudden, everything changed and Tinubu became the president, even though there were people who were ahead of him. So Inec chairman is already somebody that that cannot be said to have integrity. I say this in order to talk about the fact that why is it that yesterday Inec rejected the petition to recall or remove Senator Natasha from the Senate, and less than 24 hours later they suddenly had this information that they were lacking yesterday. They now have all the phone numbers of over 200 and something thousand people. Were immediately collected within less than 24 hours. Okay, and the addresses, everything now are now there in place. If you ask me, and even as you ain't asking me, I still tell ya, the likely thing that happened is that somebody has influenced Inec to change their verdict that is just less than 24 hours. They changed the verdict that they had yesterday, being the 26th of March. Today is the 27th. Before morning, because actually the information I have now, I got it from the morning news in Nigeria. Before maybe even 12 hours, less than 12 hours, they have already turned the rejection of the petitions against Natasha. They have turned it and now make it okay that she can now be recalled. Okay? Now, you ask yourself a question. Is it even good enough? Is it enough reason to recall somebody? In other words, if the constituents of Natasha really knew what they were doing, is it possible for them to agree to recall Natasha according to the law? Because if you have enough signatories, you can recall a lawmaker. Is it possible that actually true people, true constituents of Natasha actually want to recall her because she was suspended from the Senate for something that she's fighting for her right? My answer is very unlikely. If anything, the constituents should petition against the Senate for illegally suspending Natasha. That's what should happen. That's what will happen in any other crime that is not insane. Because yes, Nigerian political scene is very insane. The constituents of Natasha, instead of recalling her, what they should be talking about is fighting for Natasha'S right and for their right, that the Senate has no right, no power to recall or to suspend Natasha. Instead, it's the other way around. They decided to suspend her for something that they shouldn't suspend her for, especially when there is a court issue asking them not to make any move against the woman. And then, interestingly, instead of the consequence of Natasha fighting against illegal suspension of Natasha, they decided to want to remove Natasha from the Senate. Is that possible? Of course not. I don't think so. It is corruption fighting back. Very likely, Akpabio and the gang that are fighting against Natasha want to remove her from the Senate by all means, especially she had the audacity to be accusing them of sexual harassment or accusing Akpabio of sexual harassment. Who gave her that audacity? That's the question now. They don't care what Nigerians think. They don't care. Senator or Senate President Godswill Akpabio does not give a damn that Nigerians are saying he is wrong, he is wrong, he is wrong. Like I said, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has said so, that he is a very corrupt man, according to the report he got, official report. And even the boss of Atiku Abubakar, the then president, Obasanjo, Olusegun Obasanjo, has also pronounced openly on TV that the Senate or the lawmakers are very corrupt. Obasanjo did declare also that the lawmakers of Nigeria currently are very corrupt, especially the leadership of the Senate and the House, that they are very, very corrupt. So I'm not the one accusing Akpabio and anybody else of corruption. I'm not the one. I'm just going by what I've heard. Because if I want to accuse Akpabio personally, I will have to have facts. So I wouldn't even do that. I'm just repeating what has been said against him. And two people that definitely can believe what they are saying, former President Obasanjo and his Vice President Atiku Abubakar, declared that the leadership of our National Assembly is very, very corrupt and with impunity. That's all I got for you today. Okay? This is Harry Agena, and I want you to know that I ain't bullshitting ya.